guys. Hey, who said that? Last time I talked to you guys, I forget when it was, like after the next day, I was talking to Cody, I was just like talking about how it went. I was like, I feel like none of them really cared what I was saying. Like they were all just like staring at me with like blank faces. And Cody was just like, well, it's just because like you're used to middle schoolers who just like are like picking their nose and like doing stuff, and they were like actually like listening to you. Like that's what it looks like for someone to listen to you. So I was like, oh, that like feels really good. Like they're like them just like sitting there and like not doing anything means they're listening. That's good. So anyway, it's fun to like come talk to you guys because you listen. The middle schoolers listen too. I love them so much. They just listen in a very different way. Okay, so anyway, I want to start by showing this little video that kind of connects to what I'm going to talk about, but also half just because I think it's really funny. So I guess it's this like dad who is waiting to pick up his student from school, and it's like a really icy day, and he's like sees a spot where like all these kids keep like slipping on ice, and he just like decides to video it because it's really funny, and just like one by one they just come and keep slipping. And so I'm not making fun of these kids. We would probably all slip too. But I want to show you this video of these kids slipping on ice and the dad laughing at them.
Okay, everybody's been slipping on ice. Let's see what these ladies do. Oh, there it goes. Oh, that's funny. They're gonna fall, they're gonna fall, they're gonna fall. She's gonna fall. Oh. She's gonna fall. Kid coming, he's going a little fast. If he turns here, he's going to drill it right about now. Okay, who's gonna fall here? Oh, yep. Oh. Oh, she's dead. That hurt. That hurt. Oh, it's terrible. I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing with you. Okay, watch this kid. I guarantee you he's gonna drill it. Oh, he's gonna drill it. He's gonna drill it.
What kind of dad do you...
Okay, so you get the point. So that like keeps happening and happening. And I like how he admits, he's like, this is terrible, like that we're doing this. And at one point, like later on in the video, you can hear like a woman, I guess like his wife or something, is like, we like shouldn't be doing this. And like right as she's saying that, like another kid falls and she just loses it. So anyway, when I think about worship, I always come back to this experience that I had a few years ago. I went to Messiah College. And I might have shared this with some of you, I kind of forget, so if I already have, I'm sorry. But if you've ever been to Messiah, you might notice that there's sidewalks that like go everywhere. There's sidewalks that connect like the academic buildings to one another, and then just like sidewalks that go all across campus for you to get different places. And so with so many sidewalks like all around campus, there always seems to be someone, a student at school, writing on the sidewalks with sidewalk chalk. A lot of like clubs and organizations will like use that space to advertise things that they're doing. So they'll write like, we have a meeting tonight with like free pizza at 9 o'clock. They'll write that in chalk on the sidewalk so people see it. Or like people will just write like really like cliche stuff like God loves you so much, like in sidewalk chalk. And so anyway, there's like always like chalk, and somewhere on campus it seems like there's always chalk. But every once in a while, Messiah has what's called like an open house, where a ton of like high schoolers like you guys come and visit Messiah and kind of just like see what it's all about and see if you want to go there. And when those open houses come around, for whatever reason, Messiah likes to clean off all the sidewalks. They don't want any chalk to be on the sidewalks, so they want it to look presentable and they want it to look nice, I guess. But as a side note, like I just don't think a high school student would come like on a college visit and be like, Mom, Dad, there's chalk on the sidewalk. I can't attend here. I can't learn what it means to live life here. So I don't know why they want to do it. But anyway, they want to get the chalk off the sidewalk. And so on this one particular day, I think it was like back in March or something, it was an interesting day because at night it must have been like somewhat warm, but then as the day actually, hold on, I forgot one part. To wash the chalk off the sidewalks, they would like come around like really early in the morning, like before students go to class, and they would like hose it off or take like buckets of water and rinse it off. So it was this day in March, and it was like must have been warm at night, but then as the morning went on, it got like colder and colder. And so as it came time for students to go to class, all the water that they had washed all the chalk off with just like froze, and there was just sheets of ice everywhere. Like the sidewalks were just straight ice. And soon enough, it like turned into the situation exactly like this video. And me and my friends were on like the third floor of this academic building. I think a great view of the sidewalk where everyone walked. And we were exactly like that guy. We just like saw someone like in the distance, like they're gonna eat it in like 5 seconds. And we just like watched like people like time after time just coming and falling. And it was pretty funny to watch. Hopefully no one got like seriously hurt, but it was a lot of fun to watch. And so ordinarily, that story of students falling on ice and the college like washing the sidewalks off has nothing to say about worship. Like that ordinarily doesn't really speak to worship and what it is. But for some reason, that day and like the days following that experience, God was like, I think, trying to teach me something from that. And God was trying to like use that moment to try to get me to understand something, and specifically something about worship. And it was this, that the school had every intention of doing good. By washing the sidewalks off, washing the chalk off the sidewalks, they wanted the school to look professional and presentable. They were just trying to do something good. But in trying to do something good, they actually ended up causing more harm than good, right? They ended up causing more problems than they would have had if they just left the chalk on there. And so their attempts to do something good and noble ended up turning into something harmful. And I think we do what God, I think, was teaching me, was that we do the same thing when it comes to worship. We have the right motives when we set time aside to go and worship, and when we decide that we're going to worship. We have the right motives and want to do it for the right reasons. But in doing so, I think we can sometimes actually cause more harm than we do good. To explain what I mean by that when it comes to worship, I want to tell you a little bit about my story with worship and my experience when it comes to worship. So, back in high school, there was this like pocket of people at my church, a group of people at my church that was like really into worship, and I was part of that group. It was like some high school students, some adults, but we were just like really into worship, really passionate about it. And so like a few Friday nights each month, we would meet in this like prayer room upstairs in my church, like in the back corner, and we would just for like 2 or 3 hours, just like someone would bring a guitar and we'd just sing and pray. It would just like go on. When like other kids were doing whatever on Friday nights, we were in this prayer room like worshiping and praying. And we'd go to the same group of people. Like on weekends, we'd go to these big conferences with like really, I don't know the word, like eccentric worship, like very expressive worship. People were like waving flags and like blowing horns and like speaking in tongues, and like if you've heard what it means to be like slain in the spirit, there are like people laying on the floor with like blankets on. It was just a really wild experience probably for most of you, but for me that was just like normal. Like that's what worship was. And I have like nothing against those people. I think they're really connecting with God. Personally, like I won't always connect that way with worship. Some of you may or may not. I don't have anything against them. But I kind of started to move away from that style of worship because I felt like the people like in this group that I was with, and myself included, had this mindset when we came into worship that, okay, worship is all about me, and it's about my experience, and it's what I'm going to get out of this time right here. I heard a lot of people, and myself, I've probably said these things, and maybe people even like in these circles that you guys walk and say things like, man, I just had like a terrible day. I got into an argument with my parents. I just need to like worship a little bit. I just need to get my mind off things and worship. Or man, like someone said something really mean to me at school today. Like I just need to worship today. People are just annoying me today. People are frustrating me. I just need to worship. But when we say things like this, I think a lot like this sidewalk situation, we actually might be doing more harm than good, because we have good intentions in those moments when we say, man, I just need to get away and worship. But I'm not so sure that Jesus sees that as true worship when we say that we're just going to come sing some songs or come lift our hands just to solve all of our problems. I'm not so sure if Jesus sees that as true worship. I want to read a passage from Matthew chapter 5. It'll be up on the screen. This is from the Sermon on the Mount, if you've heard of it. The Sermon on the Mount is essentially just like a sermon on the Mount that Jesus gave, all his the core teachings and the core beliefs of who he was as a person and like what his ministry was about. The Sermon on the Mount covered like the basics of what Jesus was about. And so starting in verse 23, just a couple verses, he says this. It says, if you are offering your gift at the altar, and there you remember that your brother or your sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to them. Then come and offer your gift. And so this offering your gift at the altar that it says up there, it might sound like weird to us. That might sound like something we don't really know what that is. But I would say just think of that as worship. When it says offering your gift at the altar, think of that as worship, because that was a way back in this culture and in this time that they worshiped. They would come to the temple, and there's a little altar, and they would bring some sort of gift, be it like a type of food or some personal item or something else, and they would offer it as a gift and as an act of worship. So that was their way of worshiping God, was offering these gifts. And so for us, I think we could just read it. Therefore, if you're worshiping, singing songs, lifting your hands, sitting down, whatever it is. Therefore, if you're worshiping and you remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to them. Or leave the songs you're singing, leave whatever it is, whatever way you're worshiping, leave those things behind, go and be reconciled to that person, and then come and offer your gift. And so when we ask the question, like, what is worship? This theme that you guys are working through this month. What is worship? In this moment, Jesus really seems to expand or like broaden the horizon of what worship actually means. Instead of just seeing worship as this one act that we do, maybe on a Sunday night or a Sunday morning or a Wednesday night, instead of seeing it as this just one solitary moment, Jesus seems to say that worship is actually a way that we live our lives. Worship is actually what we do when we're not at the altar, when we're not in a typical space of worship. Worship is actually all of the other moments. So it's not just singing songs, or it's not just lifting your hands, but worship is living your life, living your every single day life, not just your Sunday night life, living your life to honor and to obey Jesus. And how do we best honor and how do we best obey Jesus? I think to do that, to honor and obey Jesus, we put others' needs before our own. I think if we had to sum up like Jesus' ministry on earth, his purpose on this earth, it was to put others' needs before his own needs. He seemed to always be doing that. In the lessons that he taught, the parables he told, and the miracles he did, and all the way up until the cross, he was always putting others' needs before his own, and he was teaching us how to live a life that does the same thing. Even in this moment, on the Sermon on the Mount, when he's talking about this act of worship, he says, you need to leave your act of worship, you are offering your gift at the altar, you wanting to do this thing. That act of worship is not as important as going and being reconciled with that person that you got into an argument with, or that something happened between you two. He said, your own moment of worship between you and God actually isn't as important as being reconciled to that person. And so worship is about a lot more than how it makes us feel in like a specific moment. It's about a lot more than us just feeling good and performing our own little thing between us and God. Because if we just understand as worship as a way to make us feel good, and if we understand worship as a way to make us feel happy and to forget about our problems, if we understand worship as a way to forget about that argument that we got into with our parents, or to forget about that mean thing that someone said to us at school, if we're just treating worship as a way to put us in a good mood and make us feel happy, then we're just treating worship like a drug, kind of, like any other drug. We're just using worship, this experience that we call worship, as like a means to an end. Instead of worshiping God just for worshiping Him, we're worshiping Him so that we will get something out of it, so that we'll feel good, or so that our problems will be solved. But if that's all worship is to us, then I think we've missed the point. If worship is just about fixing our problems, fixing the challenges that are going on around us, and fixing the hard situations that are going on around us, I think we need to kind of recenter our focus about what we think worship is. Because while worship, I think, does take our eyes off of the problems around us and the challenges that we're facing, worship definitely redirects our attention. No doubt about it. When we choose to worship God, it redirects our attention away from what's going on around us, which can be a really good thing. Because if those are things, the things that are going on around us, if there are things that we can't fix, that we can't do anything about, that if there's no use in worrying about them, then it's awesome to fix our eyes on God, fix our eyes away from these things that are going on around us, and focus on God. That's awesome. But if the things going on around us are things that we can fix, whether it's a relationship or a situation, something that we've caused, if there are things that we can fix, if there's someone to be reconciled with, or a situation to reconcile, and we just avoid those things in the name of worship and say, man, I just need to get away from these things. I need to go worship for a little bit. If that's our attitude, then I think we've missed the point of what Jesus means to worship. Because again, it's not just about this one moment, but it's about living an entire life of worshiping, of honoring, and of obeying Jesus. And that's kind of just what I want to leave you guys with tonight, is that worship is it kind of twofold. That one, it's not just about making me feel good and me feeling happy. And two, it's not just about this one singular moment that I have on a Sunday night. I think there can easily get to we can easily get an attitude that says, okay, I got my worship in for the week. Like, sang 4 songs, I'm good. Like, my worship, I'm set. My worship tank is full. But Jesus says, no, worship is actually when we leave this place. Not to say this isn't worship, but worship is also about when we leave this place and how we're treating the people around us, the thoughts that we're thinking, the relationships we have with our family members and with our friends. Worship is a lot broader than I think we often make it. And so Cody's going to come up and sing this song that I was actually not planning to have him play until this morning. I was driving to church and heard this. I was actually listening to Nate Hopkins, one of his playlists on Spotify. Shout out to Nate. And this song came up, and it was just like really spoke to exactly what I was trying to get at. And that worship is a lot more than just what's done up on the stage. Worship is when we leave this room, are we going to live a life that honors and obeys Jesus? And so that might mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people. Maybe it means an addiction that you have, or like a way of thinking that you need to break, or a relationship that you have with someone that you've caused them pain, or they've caused you pain and you need to forgive or ask for forgiveness. Whatever it is, worship is us choosing to live our life in a way that honors and obeys Jesus. And so as Cody sings this song, I want you to just be thinking, what in my life do I need to do differently so that I'm worshiping God with every part of who I am? Not just my Sunday night self, or my Sunday morning self, or my Bible study self, but with every part of who I am. What do I maybe need to do differently so that my whole life is an act of worship unto God? So why don't we close our eyes? And as Cody sings, just be thinking of those things. What in my life do I need to see as an act of worship and not just another part of life? Where do I need to expand my horizon of what it means to worship? How can I better honor and how can I better obey Jesus with my life?
Hear the song of my life. Let it be a sweet, sweet sound. Let it be a sweet, sweet sound. I'll raise this anthem high. Let it be a sweet, sweet sound. Let it be a sweet, sweet sound. Hear the song of my life. Let it be a sweet, sweet sound. Let it be a sweet, sweet sound. I've raised this anthem high. Let it be a sweet, sweet sound. Let it be a sweet, sweet sound. I am an instrument of the living God. My life a melody, His name. More than the songs I sing, worship is everything. I live to glorify His name. So hear this song of my life. Let it be a sweet, sweet sound. Let it be a sweet, sweet sound. I'll raise this anthem high. Let it be a sweet, sweet sound. Let it be a sweet, sweet sound. God, hear the song of my life. Let it be a sweet, sweet sound. Let it be a sweet, sweet sound. I've raised this anthem high. Let it be a sweet, sweet sound. Let it be a sweet, sweet sound.
So Jesus, I don't know what it is for every person in this room that might need to change. But would you teach us what it means for our lives to be a sweet, sweet sound unto your ear, God? Not just for our voices when we're singing a song to be a sweet sound, but for our lives, the way that we think and the way that we act, for those to be acts of worship unto you, God. So teach us how to live lives of worship. Lives of worship, God. Not just moments of worship, but lives of worship. Teach us how to do that better, Jesus. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your guidance in this journey that we call life. We love you so much. Amen. All right, so you guys have a little bit of time for small groups. I just encourage you, if you have time, talk about that. What does it mean for your life to be an act of worship to God? So I think you know what to do. Go ahead.
So I know a lot of you guys don't have school tomorrow.